remember as a kid growing up. I was born in 9/11/30, right in the early beginnings of the Great Depression. And I lived in Concord. I was born at Emerson Hospital. I lived at 14 Bedford Street. That was just a little way out of the center of town. And my grandfather lived in front. He ran a contracting business out of there, and they used to have, there was a barn and sheds where they used to have horse and tip carts, and it had just switched over before I entered into the world. So we had a family cow. My father milked the cow, gave the morning milk to my grandfather's family, and we had the evening milk. Anything that was left over went to the neighbors. I think the first, we did a lot of recycling, although we didn't really call it that in those days. We had a garden, we had chickens, and as I said, the cow. So we ate pretty well considering everything else. As far as the recycling, the clothes were mostly pass-me-downs. I can't help thinking today when I see these girls walking around with the pants with the holes out of them that they just bought at the store and paid ungodly amounts of money for. If we had a hole in our pants, there was not much you could do about it, but you were very embarrassed wearing it. That's the way the times were. As I said, my grandfather was in the contracting business. So I used, as a youngster, 3, 4, 5 years old, I rode with him and my grandmother to the different jobs, and I knew all of the men they gathered in the yard in the morning to go to the different jobs, and sometimes they wouldn't know how to get there, so my grandfather would shove me in the truck and I'd show them how to get there to the jobs. It seems kind of strange, a kid 3, 4 years old, to remember that, but I could. And he picked me up later on in the day, an hour or so after we got there. When we went to school, I missed going to the first grade by 5 days. It was poor planning on my father and mother's part. But you went to the Peter Buckley School, and we lived just under a mile away, so you had to walk. We walked to school in the morning, walked home for lunch, walked back again in the afternoon, and was through the center of town, and so forth. And you can think of a kid 6 years old walking that distance today. It just doesn't happen. Of course, we took some shortcuts. We'd run down between the stores and jump to Millbrook, and if you were athletic enough, you made it, and sometimes you didn't. The kids at school everyone was pretty much in the same boat, except as far as money is concerned. But there were a few kids from well-to-do families. They liked to mix them in for 2 or 3 years with us. With us less fortunate kids, let's say it that way, and toughen them up a little bit before they went off to private schools. So that was an interesting time. When I'd get home from school at night, there was always chores to do. My parents felt that idle hands got into trouble, and they were certainly right, because I got into my share of trouble. And before I had gone to school, there was a headstone place out in front, an old Englishman carved headstones by hand. And I'd spend a lot of time there with him, and all of the old duffers that lived on the street would walk down to the, well, we used to call it the Greeks, to get a beer. They'd stop in and spend an hour or two passing the time of day with him. So I got a pretty good education as far as the older types. I got a three generation education because as I said, my grandfather and the rest of the family, my aunts and uncles lived out in front, and I spent a lot of time with them. I'd probably get 4 or 5 meals a day because I'd eat at home. I had to eat at home, but then I'd come and clean up the scraps or whatever was left that looked good at my grandmother's. So we went along like that. As I said, there was always chores, and on Saturdays there was always something to do. Then I could get off and play the rest of the day, and I'd probably jump on a wagon going by with the Rizitanos and whoever down to their farm and work along with their farm. You never had lunch or anything like that because you dug the raw potatoes and ate them with the broccoli. We didn't used to eat the bulb part of the broccoli. We'd break the stems off and skin them off, and the inside was nice and tasty. You never had to worry about packing lunch because nobody had any lunch. You just ate off of the land, so to speak. One of the things that we did as kids to raise a little bit of money, in the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, there was some big hollows, and the lily of the valley used to grow there. So when it came in bloom, we'd go and pick the lily of the valley. It wasn't on graves or anything like that. And we'd stand out on the side of the road and sell them to the tourists. 10 cents a bunch or whatever, they would be putting them on the graves. And then, of course, the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery had all the graves of the authors and so forth. And as kids, there'd be 5 or 6 of us sitting around there playing jackknife or something, and we had a rule that when a car with an out-of-state number plate come on, you take turns as to who got up to get in there. You'd stand out there, guide to all the famous great authors and graves. You know, you'd be running alongside of the car trying to get a job. And we're lucky enough, we take them into the cemetery, and there was Emerson, Hawthorne, Thoreau, Alcott, and many of the different authors there, and we'd show them the route, and we'd show them and tell them little things. One of the ones was Ephraim Wales Bull. He perfected the Concord grape, and wasn't thinking when I was reading, and I was reading it to try to impress somehow. One night it says, he sowed and they raped him. Everybody started to laugh. I didn't know what I had said, but it went over all right. I went back and read it again afterwards. Says, well, wow. But, I got to be pretty good at doing that type of thing. We only had it in an off time. Then as time went on, we had some very bad storms. I can remember, I think I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, and we were walking home from school, and the sky was just flying by us. We talked about, wow, look at how fast those clouds are going and so forth. So I went home, changed my clothes, did my chores, then went over to the other, what we called the other lane, 2 lanes over where my friends lived. And we were making a camp out in the woods. And the trees started to fall down and so forth. Well, I figured it was about time that I headed for home. So by the time I started, the trees with big branches were blowing and everything was going. In front of my grandmother's house was the first gate of the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. And they had pine trees about, bigger than this, that were probably 100 feet tall. And they started coming down one after the other. I got home to my grandmother's and watched the trees. We didn't even know what was going on. And the men started to come in from the jobs, and my mother she had my sister up in Maine to some dance lessons or something. She finally came in about 5:30, white as a ghost. She said, I had to keep backing up and turning around and going through people's yards. She said, I got over onto the other side of town in McGrath's farm. She said, I had to drive over the hills of potatoes like this because the trees were blocking in some places. But she got home, it was a hurricane. We didn't even know what it was. We hadn't had one in 100 years. It was the most devastating hurricane that we've had in my lifetime, anyway. But that night, everybody went out and cut swaths to get down there. The trees were piled high, and in those days there were no chainsaws or anything like that, so everybody got out with their buck saws and cross cuts and, the one-hand saws and the two-hand saws, and cleared the roads so you could get through. The thing that I thought was great was we didn't have school for a week. But that happened in 1937, and that gave people a lot of work. The people that had money in town, I had all kinds of people to come and clean their yards up for them and so forth. But it was so devastating. You could take acres of land of pine trees, and every one of them would just land down flat. They had sawmills set up 3 or 4 different places in Concord where they sawed the lumber up. And my father used to haul slabs to the different houses. I think you could buy a load of slabs for $1 or something like that. Money wasn't too plentiful. How I'd make mine is, as a kid, before I went to school, I'd shovel walkways. Once in a while you get a driveway to shovel, but mostly you get 1 or 2 walkways. You were in heaven because you got 15 cents or something for shoveling the walkway. And you were the only kid in town that could jingle your pocket and have 15 cents in it, But you also got they'd call my grandmother and say, is Bud around? Can he go downtown for me? Or you go downtown for the neighbors. Once in a great while you got a 2-cent Coke bottle. Coke didn't come in the big quart bottles. They had just the regular sized bottles, and they would, as an exchange, 2 cents a bottle. Sometimes if you were lucky, you got a nickel bottle, and wow, that was really big time pay. But one of the things I remember in school, in the first and second grade, is they herd us all into the auditorium and stand there. They were giving you inoculations for the shots for the measles and chicken pox and all of that, all of the things that the babies get when they're born today, for the most part. Another thing I remember was if you had the measles or the chicken pox or the scarlet fever was the worst, they'd tack the red sign up on the door, and nobody could go into the house during that time. Another thing I remember, nobody went to the funeral home. Everybody was waked in the house. Thank God they got rid of that. Because some people never went home. Some of the Irish wakes, They stayed until the booze was gone. And on one occasion, I know, I won't mention any names because some people might know some of the family, but
I'll mention names.
they got going and they finally got Gussie up to, Gussie was the guy that had died. They got him out of bed so that he could take part in the fun they were having, and they found out he didn't have any shoes on, so they called down to Joe D's and made him come back up and put shoes on. But those were the things that went on, and that's a true story too. One of the things that as I move on, joined the Boy Scouts. I think you had to be 11, and somehow or other I was 10 and I got into the Boy Scouts. But, this was about the time that the war was breaking out. There was you could hear a lot of talking from overseas, and when my grandfather and my uncles would sit on Sunday afternoon, they'd sit around listening to the football games, and then I don't know, I think it was Gabriel Heater was one of the big announcers at that time, and they talk about what was going on and how Germany was going into one country after another and so forth. And I can remember them saying this is going to really affect us. Well, I guess I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. One of the things that happened to put people to work was there were two organizations that the government got together. One was the WPA, and the other one was the CCCs. And the young boys would go to the CCC camp. I don't think they got any pay for it, but they got food and clothing. And they cut lumber and built parks like the park up in, I'll think of the name of it before it's through. The other was the WPA, and they did jobs within the town. They dug a lot of trenches through swamps and so forth to drain swamps for farmland, and all the things that you couldn't possibly do today because of the Wetlands Acts and all of this stuff. It helped keep a lot of people's cellars dry and so forth, because later on, when I first started running a machine, I'd go out and dig out some of those. But, the WPA, we had a famous saying for it. The WPA stood for "We Poke Along." That's about all they did was poke along, but they got enough to put a little food on the table. Then going back to the war part, the Concord Armory had a Yankee division there. They had a lot of the boys started to sign up. A little bit, some of them started signing up for the Army because there was no jobs or anything, so they figured join the Army and they'd at least have clothes and food. And as it progressed, some of them went to Canada because they were, England was already at war. Then I remember the day when the Japanese bombed and
Did they go to Canada to join the service? To join their service?
Join their service.
Right, because they could then immediately go to war.
Right. In fact, Norm Tucker, who was a past district governor, did exactly that. Graduated from University of Vermont and went on to fly planes there. But in December 7th, I remember my father, I was out digging a trench. We had moved up to, we had built a house, the first house that I had ever been a part of. That's another story in itself. But come out and told me that we were gonna be at war because the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. But some of the things that I remember as the boys were being drafted and so forth, I'd ride my bicycle on Monday mornings up to the depot in Concord. That's where the draftees that were picked for that week to go in would be there. The Red Cross was there with coffee once in a while for them. Tom Finan, who was a cop, would be there checking the list, and if they didn't show up, he took off and picked them up and brought them back. There was nobody escaped the thing. And pretty soon you notice that pretty much all the young kids were gone. All the young fellas, they weren't young kids to me, they were big guys to me because they were, like my uncles, they all went. It cleaned out all of the kids from 17 years up to about 35 years. And so there wasn't very many, people to do the jobs. There was a lot more jobs available then. Not a lot of more money, but a lot more jobs. One of the things that I remember is walking by is everybody had a son or a daughter in the service had a poster sign with stars on how many people they had from the service in it. And the ones you didn't want to see is the ones that had the I don't know if it was a gold or a silver star.
Gold stars.
That somebody had been killed in the service. I know in the 6th grade, one day they came and one of my friends, they took him out. He didn't come back. They found out that his brother had been killed in the service. So those were pretty sad times. The other thing, you know, that if you saw Bill Toller, who was a taxi driver, if you saw him going to a house, you knew that he was delivering the bad news that someone of the family had been killed. That as far as I can go today.
Any questions? You know, this is the first of
one of
the
the
series.
things-
It will be to be continued.
Oh, good. One of the main things I wanted to do was the guiding part of the thing that when I was guiding. As these guys went away, they used to get all the big jobs guiding, and I was lucky enough to get a car one day, and they were asking me a pile of questions, and later on I found out that it was one of the owners of Talk Tours. I don't know if anybody ever heard of Talk Tours. They used to run tour buses all over the country, and when I got out of high school, I had a little run-in with my father. I guess I wasn't doing quite what he thought, and I thought I was, so I walked away for a few days and thought I'd become a tour guide. So I got a job. I worked 3 days at it. My father says, about time you smartened up and come back to work for me. So my profession as a tour guide was short-lived, but I'll leave it at that.
As I said, to be continued. Thank you, Bud. Thank you so much. I just another round of applause. Our hard-working, honest, and with high integrity Bud Flannery. And I'm gonna steal what the reporter said in that paper, if you remember, still going strong. Thank you, Bud. Thank you so much. Thank you.